Open Your Eyes is brought to you by the Belize Bank, Our Country, Your Bank, and Smart, bringing people together.
Live from the GBM studios in Belize City, it's Open Your Eyes. Start your morning right with your hosts, April Martinez and Isani Caetano.
Good morning and welcome to Open Your Eyes.
Start your morning right.
I'm April Martinez.
And I'm Isani Caetano. Good morning.
Good morning, Belize, and good morning, Isani.
Good morning, April.
All good?
Yeah.
The weekend gone good?
I'm as
Rest
gray as
up?
the weather outside.
I don't know if that's a good thing.
Hey, it's what you make of it.
Indeed.
what it
But
is.
Isani, we have, it's Monday. We have a jam-packed show lined up for our viewers.
Yes, we
So
do.
let's get into what you can expect in today's show. The Belize Police Department addresses rising police brutality cases. UNICEF highlights juvenile justice within the law. Funding sustainable ecotourism with grant supports, and preserving the future of culture in Belize. Got a good weekend, Isani?
Yes, I can't complain.
Yes.
Very, very restful weekend.
Okay.
The weather,
Really?
Yeah.
In the West, it was good.
look, it was hot, then it was raining, then it was hot, then it was raining.
Okay.
Unfortunately, it happened in that order, but unpredictably.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
It did call for isolated showers over the course of the weekend, and while I was working and traveling around, I was expecting it to get really, really bad over the course of the weekend. But I'm really happy for my sake anyway that the weather held up in the West.
Yes,
But
yes.
you know what? However your weekend was spent, thank you so much for joining us here this Monday morning, Isani.
All right, so here are 5 things you need to know this morning. A Facebook Live post ends with tragic double murder in Belize City. The government of Belize opens the floor to speak up on the 13th Amendment. The court strikes out a case against the Belize Elections and Boundaries Commission. Elon Musk starts his own political movement. And of course, for tomorrow, we kick off with our live audience for KTV Season 7.
Yes.
All right?
Right, but you know, the one item that has been on social media really has been that tragedy over the course of the weekend that, you know, I personally didn't see the live, the Facebook live, so I saw all of the commentary that followed and of course the series of unfortunate events that occurred right after.
Well, here's the thing. We started off the weekend on a very violent note.
Yes, we did.
In San Pedro, there was a deadly attack against 2 individuals. In Belize City, there was a late afternoon shooting on Partridge Street, which is now Amandala Drive,
Yes.
near its intersection with Vernon Street. And for us here in Belize City, that is the one that, in my opinion, triggered off a series of events. And I had a chance to look at the situation report that was shared by the police department with me over the weekend.
Sure.
And if one were to triangulate where and how and who, then perhaps it would be safe to say that this entire string of incidents surround a group of young men from a particular gang, from a particular location in Belize City, right? And it's up to the department to draw any connections, you know, in terms of these particular incidents. I'm only making my own inference
Right.
based on what I saw. But yes, so there was this shooting incident on Friday evening, and if I'm not mistaken, as many as 13 spent shells were recovered from the scene. So they were out to execute
Yes.
whoever the quarry was. That's the first instance. Then that was followed up with a Facebook Live post with an individual who is outside of the country. And this is where it gets interesting for me, right? This individual went live with a series of comments that are inflammatory to whoever his enemies are, or whoever the individuals are
Definitely
he was
was
trying to
poking the
rile
bear.
up. Yeah, right? And within a few hours, gunshots were reported in the same neighborhood that I'm discussing here.
Yeah.
But it wasn't until several hours later that the bodies of 2 individuals were discovered in the very same community. This would be in the Mayflower, Bannock, Ghost Town, that, well, we call it Ghost Town, right? That entire part of the city. But tragic as that is, and it's very heartbreaking that one's innocent loved ones would get tangled up in the mess that one creates.
Yeah.
When, as you said, he chose the path of poking the bear. So he's in the United States and there's all this tough talk, gun talk, so
But he
on and
feels
so
like he's
forth.
safe.
Right?
Yeah.
And so his enemies perhaps thought, well, okay, you did the talk, all of this or whatever, well, this is how I don't know then. Now, how do you face that reality?
Yeah.
Because, and I think of the lyrics of one song where we say, your mouth will put you in a problem, right? So all the tough talk now results in this.
Yeah.
But that's, again, one incident. There were a string of other incidents over the weekend that I'm saying seemingly connects to one particular neighborhood and a group of young men that are involved in whatever is taking place. So the police department will have to address these issues,
Yes.
right? A press brief has been set for this afternoon, I believe at 2 or 2:30 p.m., right? And we're hoping that the commissioner would come forward. We are going to be joined in our first segment by Assistant Superintendent Stacy Smith. We'll get some questions in with respect of that, but I think the thrust of it will come from the police press brief later on today. But yes, it's an interesting state of affairs,
Yes.
right? Going back to what transpired on Friday evening, that incident happened at the residence of the late Carlos Diaz, right?
Yes.
Now, when you look at Amandala Drive, formerly Partridge Street, you have at least 3 landmarks on that stretch of road
Okay.
going towards the cemetery, right? So you have St. Martin's School and its entire compound. You have Carlos Diaz's residence on the other side of Vernon Street, and then you have the Amandala compound. Those are like 3 landmarks in that area, right?
Okay.
And for all intents and purposes, it's a very close-knit community. Everybody knows everybody who hangs around there, who lives around there, and what have you. Because Baca Martins, everybody knows everybody, right? It's a very close-knit community. So that when this attack was made on this individual, the first thought that came to mind was, okay, this individual perhaps is hanging out with a particular group, and because of the gang situation in the neighborhood, you could see how the proximity of one group along with the other makes for oil and water, right? And so I would say it's in the wake of this incident that the young man went on social media and then
Said what he said, and then everything else kind of just
snowballs from there. Right?
It kind of was almost a bit ironic because we just recently also posted about a statement from the Commissioner of Police warning
so that
against
follows
irresponsible social media use.
That follows in the wake of what we've seen
all of
here.
this, exactly. And indeed, you don't know what's going to happen in light of all of this. But Isani, here's my question, and it's more along the lines of gang culture in Belize and the very little that I would understand about it. But you are in this particular space, in this particular environment. Wouldn't you think about protecting your loved ones first because you are in this environment? That is just a question that I would uphold. You wouldn't you would think of them, right, in the wake of all of this. You understand that this is a dangerous situation you're in.
Well, to be honest with you, the dynamics have changed considerably, right?
Okay.
There was a time when you're in the street and you're dealing with street business, certain things, certain people off limits, right?
Right, yeah.
Like you wouldn't touch someone's child, you wouldn't touch someone's mother,
Disrespect,
or grandmother, or what have you.
Right.
Sort of like a moral code.
Indeed.
As much as being in the street,
You and I are the ones
really aren't any laws that govern street business, but
Right.
it's like a moral code,
Right.
right? So I wouldn't prey on your mom or your sister or anybody. When I have nothing
Well,
to
that's
do
what
with
I
it, really go
understand that
through.
concept to be.
But yes, long gone are those days when people operate within that unspoken set of rules.
Wow.
So everyone now seemingly is fair game. So the young man makes his post.
Yes.
He inflames the hell out of the situation, and then his enemies just decide that, okay, well, this is how we will deal with the situation from our end. And it's
Yeah.
most regrettable, because when you look at that woman and you look at the other young man who was wheelchair bound,
Yes.
they have nothing
To do
with
with
that.
the issues.
Absolutely
Yeah.
nothing to do with that.
Yeah.
Right?
I would imagine then this is one of the ways that I believe the police department has been warning off against using social media. You know, it can end to these sort of results. But also in that statement, it also talks about how, you know, when they are going through some investigations and so forth in light of whatever is being posted on social media can also really harm the investigations that are being done.
So there are two things that immediately came to mind when I got wind of what was taking place here. There are two phrases or expressions that are common among young people these days, right? First one is, you play silly games, you win silly prizes, right? The other one is, forgive the language, F around and find out, right? First two things that come to mind where that is concerned, which is in line with your statement of poking the bear.
Yeah.
You have to know that there will be consequences for certain actions that you take,
Yes.
right? And so, going back to your question, April, should I not consider the safety and the well-being of my loved ones if I am the one that is aggravating a situation?
Right.
Perhaps I should have thought of that before I went that far, right? Most people don't. It's in the heat of the moment, we're taunting and we're hurling threats and what have you, and then you have real life consequences to deal with after that.
Yes, but this is one of those consequences. I wouldn't imagine he thought that is what would escalate to the results of his post. But I think in general, when we are either taking to Facebook in the midst of perhaps some brutality happening, an altercation taking place, wherever we post perhaps an opinion about a situation and so forth. And in Belize, we tend to make light of a very difficult situation sometimes. It does warrant for conversations to blow out of proportion. It makes our jobs in the media also harder.
Yeah.
And it also does make the job of the police to kind of like tame the situation hard as well, which is what I think the statement from the Belize Police Department.
Yeah, we need to provide some clarity on that statement.
Sure.
Because some people interpreted it to mean that the department perhaps is attempting to muzzle the media in terms of being able to cover this particular event or any other event. But it's not necessarily so, just so we're clear on that.
Indeed.
Right? There's a difference between us, the established media, against all the other so-called social media blogs. You can't call them media house, because at this point, people, anything on Facebook, then they call a media house. Not so.
No,
they don't own
the rights.
or the kind of real estate or space to consider themselves legitimate media.
Indeed.
Let me just say that. But yes, so there are the established media houses, which are the Fires, the Sevens, the Love, the Crems, so on. And then you have all of these other ones that exist in the social media space, right? But they are in what I would call the Wild West. Where they are is seemingly ungovernable. Where we are, we have specific rules and ethics and stuff that guide the practice, right? So I think it's in line with what they were saying. Not necessarily for those of us established, because for the most part we understand how far we're going to go with something. But those who exist in the social media space, they are the ones who posted back the video of the young man when he went live and so on. So it's, in essence, what you're doing is you're perpetuating,
Yes.
perhaps endlessly, the very same situation that created the snowball effect, as I referred to.
Yeah.
Right? So I think it's in that context that the department issued the statement.
I agree, but I also wanted to make it a note that everybody, almost everybody, is on social media.
Yeah.
Almost everybody has access to this information so quickly, all the time.
Yeah.
And what I meant by what I said in terms of like being careful how we comment or how we share certain things. So a particular piece that is being shared by anybody or one of these so-called Wild West social media pages might not have the full story, right? And one statement seen by 3,000, 5,000 people will, escalate a situation way out of control, right?
Beside the fact that our Belizean culture, we have an insatiable appetite for foolishness.
Yes,
right?
we do. And like I said, we make fun out of everything, or we might, create conflict where there isn't none, or we might stir up a pot that doesn't necessarily need to be stirred. We don't have all of the information out just yet. And so I think in this particular statement, what the police department really wanted to do is say, hey, just wait until we have all of our ducks in a row before you go out and give out partial information.
Yeah.
Right?
All right, so let's jump into another conversation though. So on Friday, the High Court handed down a decision essentially tossing out a claim that was brought against Elections and Boundaries Commission, right? So in law, there's a Latin expression, it's called res judicata, right? Where something has come before the court, it's been litigated, a decision has been made or whatever. So you can't bring back the same argument and expect, in a sense, a different outcome, right? So this group of individuals who were represented by Senior Counsel Elrington, and I think the claimants included the guy Rudy Lewinsky Wade et al., right? So they brought back, in essence, a matter that had already been ventilated before the High Court back in 2019, and then there was a subsequent court order to address the issue at hand. But they brought it back in a challenge against the Elections and Boundaries Commission. And so that was before Justice Tawanda Hondura, and he's basically saying, look, every case that comes before the court has to have finality. So you can't bring this thing in perpetuity. We've decided on it once, and so this has been the decision, these were the actions taken and what have you, res judicata, right? But beyond that, April, beyond that, we're in the second half of 2025, right?
Yes.
So in the first quarter was election season, so not a whole lot against nobody. We couldn't do the redistricting or anything then. But for me, the decision of the High Court reminds me that the Prime Minister sat on this very same couch prior to the March 12th general elections and promised that redistricting would be high on the agenda. Well, I haven't heard anything since March 12th, right?
5 months. It's going for 5 months actually since they've won the elections, and you're absolutely right. We have not heard a peak of redistricting.
It can't be that we will wait. And this is the thing, April. This is a very robust exercise to undertake. So it cannot be that we will wait until the final 2 years or the final year of this administration or this term to want to do redistricting. When all of this time can be spent organizing and executing the thing the proper way.
But you do still need like the Elections and Boundaries reform. You still need constitution reform to be able to follow up with redistricting. And as far as I'm concerned, we have not heard anything about the Elections and Boundaries reform. I believe that there was a particular case on the PCC's end, and new results of that we have yet to be seen. But
I would also want to think, forgive me for jumping in quickly here, that with a new term comes a new configuration of the EBC, right? So I don't know, and maybe I'm at fault for not following it up. But I don't know that there's been a new commission named and all its members. Perhaps there has been, and I was in the dark on it, but I have to go and do my research on that.
Yeah, I would definitely think that it would be something that would be in form of a press release at least, or inform the media at least. But you're right, we haven't really been hearing much on the Elections and Boundaries front when it comes to that case. And as we have been discussing from 2019, redistricting does take time, as they have all said. Right, and it doesn't just take time in terms of putting certain boundaries and so forth, you also have to inform the people that are in those communities that you are now within this particular area.
Yeah.
This is your area representative, or this is how you're going to vote, etc., etc. So it does take a lot of time to restructure and then raise awareness on that matter. And if this was a particular case that was already in the course before the 2025 general elections, I would have imagined that it would have been something that they hit the ball running with as soon as they won the election. So we have yet to hear about it, and I'm very curious to note if there's any type of conversation surrounding that at this time.
Excellent point.
But,
all right.
All right, as we wrap up, it wasn't part of our five things needed to know, but right now I understand that Texas is going through some severe flash flooding at the moment.
The body count is mounting.
The body count is definitely mounting, Isani, and we do have quite a large Belizean diaspora in Texas. And so if you have family out there, reach out, call them, make sure that they are safe. And that, that comes at the heels of a bunch of other administrative topics and so forth happening in the United States, which is a lot of things to get into. But I just really wanted to make that note that the diaspora is a part of the Belizean culture, and we just wanted to let them know that we are thinking about them. But moving on, and speaking of just weather and weather updates, let's move into our weather update from the folks at the National Meteorological Service. All right, it was very strange weather over the course of the weekend, but it was definitely raining when I was driving up this morning. And so according to the folks at the Met Service, it says that it's going to be cloudy skies today with sunny breaks tonight. Skies will be partly cloudy to cloudy. A few showers and thunderstorms will affect most areas today, with shower activity gradually decreasing tonight and tomorrow morning. In today's temperature, our highs for today along the coast is at 87 degrees Fahrenheit inland with a whopping 92, so it's going to be really, really hot inland. And over the hills, it is 80 degrees Fahrenheit. And the lows for tonight, our extended forecast today, Tuesday, is going to be about 87 degrees to 93 degrees, and Wednesday 88 degrees with 94 degrees, and it's going to just keep getting hotter throughout the course of the week. In our astronomical forecast, the sun rose today at 5:23 a.m. and it will set tonight at 6:31 p.m. The moon rise for this evening is at 4:05 p.m. and the moon set is at 3:12 a.m. In our marine conditions, the sea state will be moderate to rough, and we will have gusty winds blowing from the east at 10 to 20 knots. In our tides condition, today's high rose at about 6:53 a.m. and in our lows, it's going to be at 2:51 p.m. Another high we will see at 9:04 p.m. and tomorrow's low will be at 1:23 a.m. And that does it for our Eye on the Weather. Isani, back to you.
All right, when we come back, we're going to be joined by Assistant Superintendent of Police Stacy Smith, and we're going to be discussing the weekend's activities that took place, and of course, we're going to be talking about what seems to be a rise in cases of police brutality. That's a conversation you don't want to miss.
And I'm a teacher, and I bank with Belize Bank Independence Branch. What I enjoy is the safety features that the app offers. I have a sense of not having to worry or be concerned about somebody finding my password and username to sign in the application because of the use of the one-time password. And another feature that I love, that I use the most, is how the app synchronizes with my fingerprint on my device. I enjoy the rapid and easy, seamless process to apply for loans through the Belize Bank, and I don't have to be having too much back and forth to visit or take time to visit the bank. They also start to offer the online applications through the app for loan applications, which I believe is very neat. I would definitely recommend Belize Bank to other teachers because one of all the features and advantages that the app offer, with these online that Belize Bank offered, is basically everything that you can do in the palm of your hand. So I would definitely recommend the bank to other teachers.
It's finally here. KTV The Remix Season 7 goes live. Come meet the new cast of challengers ready to shake up the stage and remix the culture. From raw local power to lyrical fire, from classical hits to bold new sounds. This is where Belize's next star is born. The place to be? The Bliss Center for the Performing Arts. Get your tickets today for only $5 at Greater Belize Media on Coney Drive and 88 Shopping Center. KTV The Remix Season 7, Tuesday, July 8th at 8 p.m. See you there.
In our world that's always changing, one thing stays the same.
Our promise as Smart Belize to keep you connected.
Connected to the moments, the people, and the future that matter most.
With every new tower, our service upgrades, and every new smile, we're keeping our promise in building more than a network.
We're building a future, a family as Smart Belize. From Punta Gorda to Corozal, we are here not just as a network, but as your partner in progress.
We have grown significantly over the past 20 years, and we just keep growing. Thank you for placing your trust in us. We remain dedicated to providing meaningful connections that bring value in every way that matters to you. We continue to bring people together.
My name is Leomar Langzert and I'm a teacher and I bank with Belize Bank Independence Branch. What I enjoy is to see if the features that the app offers. I have a sense of not having to worry or be concerned about somebody finding my password and username to sign in the application because of the use of the one-time password. And another feature that I love, that I use the most, is how the app synchronizes with my fingerprint on my device. I enjoy the rapid and easy, seamless process to apply for loans through the Belize Bank, and I don't have to be having too much back and forth to visit or take time to visit the bank. They also start to offer the online applications through the app for loan applications, which I believe is very neat. I would definitely recommend Belize Bank to other teachers because one of all the features and advantages that the app offer, with these online that Belize Bank offered, is basically everything that you can do in the palm of your hand. So I would definitely recommend the bank to other teachers.
We at Fulltech Systems understand that technology isn't just a tool, it's a game changer. At home, smart devices and AI are revolutionizing daily life. In education, tech is making learning more interactive and accessible for students and educators alike. For businesses and government, it's driving innovation, streamlining operations, and unlocking growth, leveraging tech for better services, infrastructure, and security. At Fulltech Systems, we help you thrive with cutting-edge solutions, partnering with leaders like Dell, HP, Microsoft, APC, Fortinet, Cisco, and Tomy Inc. We deliver the right products for your needs, whether it's boosting efficiency, improving customer engagement, or scaling operations. Connect with us and let's drive innovation together. Fulltech Systems, your technology center, where you come for the price, but stay for the service.
Coming up, get ready because it's crop over time. A friendship contribution to children with cancer, making a difference for those with special needs. African culture expressed through fashion, and another reward for a job well done. It's all next on this station.
And welcome back. Our first conversation this morning is all about policing. We have with us in studio the Assistant Superintendent Stacy Smith, and she's here to discuss with us a range of issues, including matters involving the department itself. Good morning, ASP Smith.
Good morning, good morning, good morning, Belize.
I feel like it's the first time we're having you on the couch with us since you kind of came into the spotlight as a new face of the police department where communicating with the media is concerned. So that being said, welcome to Open Your Eyes. I'm looking forward to this conversation. First things first.
Thank you for having me.
There's been a raft of incidents over the weekend, and I'm certain that while the commissioner will get into the details of that later this evening, perhaps a perspective from you on how you see this unfolding in the city, and perhaps what the department is looking at in terms of being able to address these incidents of criminality.
Certainly, and thank you, first of all, thank you all for having me here. Certainly, the department is approaching this weekend's incident with great concern. I think the extent to which I wish to speak, because as I've indicated and as you've stated, the Commissioner will hold a press conference at 2:30 p.m. So the details of the department's approach will be revealed then insofar as it is necessary to be revealed. But what I can say is that along the line of the press briefing that was released yesterday, in terms of the public being cognizant and being more responsible in terms of the posts that they share, we know that some elements are paying attention to social media. There is this false pride or this gang pride, and when it is that there are comments from persons stoking the fire and things of that sort, it has the possibility of getting to a level that nobody stands to benefit from.
Yeah, I imagine that in the wake of all of this, the public and our viewers that are watching right now, they have a lot more questions than they do answers. And I think that the power of social media, this is one of those incidents where we see it being used in a very negative light. The police department has been under a microscope lately, and we have been watching the interactions of the police with the general community and the communities that they are fit to serve. And I just kind of wanted to create that foundation for a conversation that we do want to have, because up until Wednesday, I believe, we've still been seeing this bad interaction with the police and the community. And it's not the first time, but for some reason this particular week we've just been seeing an event after an event after an event. And I think the comments and the questions that the public have are, what is being done about that?
Yes, the questions and the comments that the public have are very valid questions and comments. We are public officers, we are public servants. So service requires a certain level of discipline and conduct and professionalism, of course. Whilst it is that those are the events or the happenings that took the center stage for the department over the past week has also conducted numerous community policing efforts, and those were not incidents or matters that were publicized. So certainly, whilst it is that I do not want to dictate what goes on the media, what is of equal importance is that whenever information is being broadcasted, it's being broadcasted in a balanced way to show that not only are there officers who are rogue, because it will be immature of me or foolish of me to think that with an organization that stands at approximately 3,000 persons, there won't be officers who do not conduct themselves in the manner that is befitting of officers. Again, they are persons who are taken from society. So every ill that occurs in every sphere of society, there is a representation there in the department. Whilst we do training, the recruit training and continuous training in the hope of ridding persons who may come into the department with these type of character traits, there is only so much that can be done, and certainly whatever disciplinary actions that we can take within the confines of the law is what dictates what goes after that.
You're right in saying that, Stacey, because in every organization, certain things are endemic. You can't have an organization with all stellar, squeaky clean people, right? Because you're, as you mentioned, bringing in people from various pockets of society, and they come with their own mindset, their culture different, and so on. I, for one, I'm very happy and content when I see a lot of police officers on patrol in my neighborhood. I know where I come from, and I know that that is necessary to keep things at bay, right? Other people would feel like because they're seeing a lot of young police officers on the streets, they feel perhaps a sense of, I wouldn't say confinement, but if they're probably thinking, man, I can't move around as freely as I ordinarily would because
there's
a lot of policemen there and stuff. My question to you, Stacey, is when an officer swears an oath, right, to protect and serve, not only is that individual looking out for his or her personal well-being, but the mandate is to look after the community's well-being, right? How do you guys find that balance? Where you might face a situation where you have to consider your own safety, but you have to interact with an individual or a group of individuals in a hostile situation without it escalating to unnecessary use of force and what have you.
The hope is certainly that when officers are confronted with situations of that sort, the training that they go through will kick in, and that will dictate how it is that they approach the situation. Certainly, there has been much emphasis placed from as far back as I was a police officer. I'm still a police officer, but as far back from when I enlisted in 2007 of community policing, being respectful, being professional, showing you the way you should approach persons when they're on the street and you're desirous of conducting a search on them because you have reasonable suspicion. So yes, police officers are human, and it is right that they are placed under microscope because with great power comes great responsibility.
Yes.
But certainly officers are required and expected to continue to improve themselves, whether it is officially through official means in terms of formal training that are had, or the officer can take it upon themselves to ensure that they are always equipped. It is always important to de-escalate the situation. That is the first course of action that is taken. It is only when de-escalation proves to be futile, then certainly you have to increase whatever approach you have to get the situation under control and preventing it from escalating even much wider, especially when it is that we're in public places and persons are around. The quicker you can get a situation under control, professionally of course, the better it is, or less the likelihood is of other persons intervening and making it an even more difficult situation for police to handle.
Here's a scenario then. A majority of the crimes that are committed in Belize City are gang related. One could argue that it ties back to some group of people who perhaps are at odds with another group based on the geography and so on and so forth, right? But you have organizations like the Leadership Intervention Unit that is tasked with being able to interact with these young men with a view to change their behavior and their outlook on life and so on. That's perhaps a softer approach in terms of conflict resolution and what have you. But then push come to shove, the police still have to wield the big stick, right? Because you're dealing with people who in some cases are bent on criminality. No matter how much you try to talk to them, you try make them see the light, so to speak, they end up on their own thing. Now, the question is, where does the department strike that balance between being able to meaningfully engage with certain pockets of society versus being able to come down heavy with the hammer?
Yes, certainly the department has always taken the position of having a dualist approach, a multifaceted approach. On one end of the spectrum is the community policing and the leadership intervention unit, and on the other end of the spectrum are the more operational arm of the unit, of the department, sorry. the carrot and stick approach is a phrase that is oftentimes said when it comes to handling issues of this nature. But what we need to appreciate is that for persons to avail themselves to the carrot, they must first of all love themselves, respect themselves, have regard for the safety of others and those they love. If it is that there continues to be a state of affairs where persons feel as if though the incentive to be bad is better and there is nothing that is there to guide them into going the positive route that is desirous, they will continue to do what it is. So going back to your questions, the police department has, since time immemorial, at least since I've been in there, placed as much emphasis as it has on, or as it can, on community policing efforts on one end and operational efforts on the other. And it is the marry of those two that certainly will create the state of affairs that is desirous to all Belizeans. But insofar as the societal norms continue to respect or to rate, to use the common parlance, persons who engage in criminality, their desire to go to that positive end will continue to diminish. So certainly it is a need for all persons in society, whether it's public servants, private servants, the citizens. I jokingly say it's almost like persons innately born with this sense of distrust for police officers, because I grew up in a home where I wasn't accustomed, or I and my siblings were not accustomed to seeing police officers coming in our home. We were not accustomed to hearing the musics that condemn police officers. But I have a younger sister who is 10 years my junior, and we live at the back of the yard, and she would have this tendency to go to the gate and just look at passers-by. And whenever, and she was 3 or 4 at this time, and whenever you would see her run to the back of the yard inside the house and hide, best believe if you go to the gate and take a check, you'll see it is that a police officer passed by. So as I said, it is not that we grew up in a circumstance that created an animosity towards police, but I don't know if it's something
that gradually grew. Yeah.
I literally don't know where it came from, because not once has, during my time growing up, police come to her house. But this little girl, she was so fearful of police. So, and this is one of the reasons why when I was a community policing officer, when I would walk on the street or go to school and persons would say, see the police there, we'll make the police beat up here, I'll make the police lock up here. I, first and foremost, I know it is that there is some legitimacy or some purpose to that mother or father, as the case may be, calling police because there's a situation that they believe they want that show of force. But I also know that it is already conditioning children from a very young age that, police are this big bad wolf, which we are not.
I have a question when it comes to this particular conversation, because we were discussing it last week Friday on the show, where a lot of the times you all have to be transported to do your community service. So a lot of the communities that you serve, you are not necessarily from there. There is a lot of relocating that happens amongst the police department, which I don't know how often community members consider that the police officer that is patrolling is not from there. Or maybe they know, maybe they don't know. But what sort of training do you all receive to kind of put yourself into a mindset, into a community, into a space that you're not familiar with? How do you familiarize yourself with the community? How are you able to get that trust and that rapport with the community that kind of prevents this sort of mentality from taking place?
Yes, it certainly, it is a factor of consideration. It is a very important point that you address. And given that Belize is so diverse, both in culture and similarly in socio-economic status. There is indeed a need for police officers, and the department has long since recognized that, and this is the reason why there are community policing efforts. When a police officer takes up posts in a place that they're not familiar with, one of the first course of action is to go into the community, introduce themselves, and undertake meet and greet. That is something that is done weekly by police officers all over the country, wherein a day is set aside for officers, both operational officers, community policing officers, CIB officers, to identify a specific neighborhood and go into that neighborhood and speaking with everyone that is there, in as much as persons are open to speaking to police officers.
Yeah. Let's go back to what you were saying prior to April's question, with the manner in which the rest of society interacts with police. When you come from a neighborhood or a community where growing up, most of the engagement that you see between officers and the civilian public is brute force engagement and what have you, you naturally grow up with this hatred towards the police. So while in my case I could respect the work of the police department in terms of maintaining law and order, the approach is oftentimes questionable, right? Because in some cases it doesn't matter how well trained an officer is. If he or she is dealing with their own challenges in their personal lives, come into a situation where they're required to act in a certain manner that diffuses a situation or arrests a situation, if it were, but they're overwhelmed with their own personal thing when they deal with home, you cannot expect, or it's difficult for one to expect reasonably that the officer will set aside his or her own issues and address the one that is in front of them. And oftentimes it creates a situation where they just come in big stick, whap whap, throw it back at the vehicle and go. When people see that, even though they're not directly engaged with what they're seeing, maybe like you said, the 10-year-old that's just speaking and sees it, that creates a certain fear, that creates a certain antipathy, that's the word, where I know I got nothing to do with them. So that reflects, excuse me, that reflects in music, that reflects in behavior. When you go to school as a child and they ask you where you do this weekend and you say, well, I said police beat up so and so back at the yard, you're sharing that informally, and then everybody gravitate towards that particular position. It's us against them, basically. The challenge is for you guys to break that mold, because yes, they are great police officers, right? And they will approach, introduce themselves, and become a member of the community that they serve. So to answer April's question, you do have police officers who come into an environment and introduce themselves and go about it the proper way. Make sure they know everybody in the neighborhood, the good people, the bad people, and the in-between, right? And so the community then accepts these people. But when you come in from the onset and you draw a certain line in the sand, that this is where I stand and this is where you stand, when you have tension, it's difficult to break that tension. I want to get your input on that.
Yes, certainly it would be a disservice to any police officer. Any police officer would be doing a disservice to themselves, sorry, to think that they are able to police a community without that community's involvement. It is impossible. So certainly such an approach is one that is not encouraged, and one that certainly the department takes a position in eradicating. When it comes to what you've stated, that what is known or what is seen by persons are police officers engaging in physicality against citizens, I am sure that citizens have seen other citizens engaging in conduct of criminality and they don't call it out. I am not saying that because you don't call out a civilian, you should not call out the police. We want you to call out the police and continue to call out the police so that we can take the necessary disciplinary actions to get those police officers who have forgotten their oath outside of the department. But similarly, we have to be realistic when it comes to if it is that we truly want a society that is going in the right direction in terms of pointing out wrongs that not only exist in public service and by the public servants, but also by civilians.
I think that the jadedness of the community's approach to policing in this manner and this light comes at the heel that we don't necessarily see the accountability that takes place. We hear these issues that happen, we hear statements from the Commissioner of the Police and the Police Department, but we don't often see what happens to that police officer after something horrible like that happens.
Great point, and I guess the takeaway for that, or the approach to be taken now, is for us to publicize, you know, how many officers have been convicted of disciplinary infractions, how many of them have been dismissed. It's not something that we necessarily publicize, but certainly going forward, maybe the discussion can be to publicize that information so the department is aware that, the public, is aware that we are taking actions against officers who we believe have conducted themselves in ways that are not beneficial to the institution and to the country.
What kind of systems, if any, or mechanisms are in place for citizens to feel safe enough to come in and make these reports and against these sort of brutalities?
Well, there is the professional standards branch. There are professional standard branch officers all over the country. These are formerly known as the internal affairs. That is the area of the department that you can go to and make your complaint, and we encourage everyone to do so. The commissioner also meets on every other Wednesdays with members of the public at Raccoon Street Police Station. All you can do is make an appointment, and you get to see the commissioner if it is that you believe you've stated something to the PSB and nothing has been done. There exists in our policies and procedure manual a direct route or a direct way in which we should handle reports or complaints against police officers. And we also have disciplinary procedure rules in terms of when it is that a police officer is implicated in any incident, whether internally or something that has nothing to do with the department, but because you are a police officer and you're expected to conduct yourself in such a way, it is something that the department finds important to see if it is that it conflicts with your ability to do your job as a police officer. So I certainly encourage persons to speak out. There is never a desire on the department's part to keep people away who want to complain. We want persons to come in and complain and stay the process. Don't, when it is that a disciplinary action has started, you decide you no longer want anything in the matter, and we are left, because even though they're a police officer and it's a disciplinary procedure, they are also entitled to natural justice and due process and all of that. And there is only so far that we can go, even if it is that all indications are that the police officer has committed themselves. But if persons don't want to come in and be a part of those disciplinary tribunal, and there is not additional corroborative evidence independent of that person that enables a tribunal to come to a position, then nothing will happen. We will have the type of society, the type of department that we want if it is that we take this cynical approach that even if I say something, nothing will happen. Things have happened. Officers have been dismissed. So I encourage persons who feel aggrieved to go ahead and make the necessary reports. And if it is that they feel as they've made reports and nothing has happened, we have seen time and time again that persons have availed themselves to the media. The media is a very powerful tool. I myself have seen how powerful the media is. Most recently, and I need to say this, with the Kikaka incident, not that I want to delve into the specifics, because as I would have stated, Commissioner Rosado will do so in this afternoon's press conference. But I will say this, I really want to say this. My integrity has been put into question because of the way a media house reported a certain incident, a Kikaka incident. You would know that on the Monday, it was very early in the morning. The video clips were not surfaced by that time. I had no knowledge of it, absolutely no knowledge. But when the portion that was aired subsequent the other day, what is being played behind me saying I have no knowledge is the police officer with the knife in his hand, which was not information that was not known, which was information that was not known to me. I was honestly, conveying, and best believe that my first course of action is personal integrity, honesty when it is that I do my job as a police officer.
That's a more than fair position.
Yes, indeed.
I think sometimes in the media, as practitioners, we err in judgment in terms of how we put together or how we share information, right? And if that were one of the cases that they did you hard in terms of how they edited it or whatever, then you're right. You have to stand on your integrity as an individual and as an officer, right? Fair enough. But my subsequent question here, Stacey, is this, right? So you have a situation where people in Kikaka, in light of what happened last Monday with the deadly stabbing, you have people now who are galvanizing and saying, well, you know what? Here's an issue where the police perhaps either used excessive force or unnecessary force, if that was the case. You have an issue where a young man is detained and arrested, a whole golf cart situation, and an officer just openly smacks the individual. So I don't mean to make that up. We ran the video. It speaks for itself.
Yes.
Right? Is that a situation where, in your opinion, could have been dealt with otherwise than resorting to that unnecessary force?
Since it will be a matter that will be under internal investigation, I do not want to prejudice that or say anything. But certainly, the fact that the police department has since transferred those persons, I think is an indication, and has, as I stated, initiated disciplinary action, shows that from the face of it alone, it is conduct that is not countenance. That particular incident happened probably 2 or 3 weeks ago, from what I learned. And the police, the professional standard branch, had already investigated that. What I was advised is that the person was not interested in criminal action, but was interested in disciplinary action, and that was what had transpired. But certainly, I will always want to employ, and these police officers will tell you, I am a presenter. And by presenter, I mean like a prosecutor in the policing world in terms of when it comes to dealing with disciplinary actions. And there are many other presenters such as myself and officers just such as myself, who will never countenance conduct that only serves to gain more hate, more animosity towards us when it is that we are doing our job.
Well, we have a lot more to discuss, but we do have to take a very quick break. And when we come back, we have more with ASP Stacy Smith. Don't go away. We'll be right back.
Here's how to access your contribution history on the My Social Security portal. First, go to your browser and type ssbportal.org.bz. Enter your email and password, then click Log In. Once logged in, you'll see your full portal account on the screen. On the left-hand side, you'll notice a drop-down menu for added features. Click on History. Choose Contributions. Read the disclaimer, then click Continue. You'll now see a full window displaying your contribution history. In the table, each row represents a different year. For example, let's look at the year 2024. Click on the row and a detailed breakdown will appear. This breakdown includes your employer's name, your earnings for each month and week, contribution type, the amounts paid, and that's how you can explore the new contribution feature on the My Social Security portal. It's quick, easy, and keeps your social security information right at your fingertips. Create your account today.
In our world that's always changing, one thing stays the same.
Our promise as Smart Belize to keep you connected.
Connected to the moments, the people, and the future that matter most.
With every new tower, our service upgrades, and every new smile, we're keeping our promise in building more than a network.
We're building a future, a family as Smart Belize. From Punta Gorda to Curacao, we are here not just as a network, but as your partner in progress.
We have grown significantly over the past 20 years, and we just keep growing. Thank you for placing your trust in us. We remain dedicated to providing meaningful connections that bring value in every way that matters to you. We continue to bring people together.
Welcome back. We are here with ASP Stacy Smith, and we have been discussing all matters regarding the current issues within the Belize Police Department. But we wanted to take it a different direction in terms of the way that you're training your officers and what are the do's and don'ts in terms of stop, searches, and arrests. So we dive into that conversation.
Okay. When it comes to a police officer being on duty and making certain observation that he believes raises the reasonable suspicion that warrants a search, the police officer certainly is to approach that person in a respectable manner. If the circumstance is such that enables him to identify himself, he does so. And he informs the person that he has reasonable suspicion of X and Y, and he desires to conduct a search on that person. Having conducted a search on that person, it would be good to thank the person for their cooperation and disperse them from the location if it is that is something like that. When it comes to the detention of an individual, we know that when a person is arrested within the first 24 hours or as soon as you are able to, you inform that person of the reason of their arrest, but in no case no later than 24 hours. It should not be that a person is in police's detention for in excess of 24 hours and they don't know what they are there for. Not because you are entitled to that 24 hours, that means you will wait until 23 and a half hours when you already know that you will inform them. You inform them right away. If it is that the person is charged, you go through the process, and from there in detention, you have to inform them of their rights, that they have the right to speak to a lawyer, speak to a friend, speak to somebody to convey the fact that they are arrested or they are in detention, and for the legal aspect of that person's detention to take place. And they are also issued with an acknowledgement form. This acknowledgement form outlines the person's rights, and all of these things certainly has to be done in a language that the person understands. When it is that the police officers are deciding to charge or have charge, if it is that it is for offenses which are usually the minor summary offenses that they can get bail, give them bail. Police station, cell block, as comfortable as we want to make it to be and as humane as we want to make it to be, it is nothing compared to somebody's home. You know, so certainly, and there's a burden on the state to provide food and security the more you have them there. So if it's a bailable offense, grant them station bail. When it is, I know there's much discussion about the 48 hours in police detention. Yes, it's 48 hours. That 48 hours is to enable officers to conduct unimpeded investigation as it relates to that person. But if it is that hour 3, 4, 5 into that person's detention, you have learned that, hey, I may have detained a person who may have some nexus to what happened but is not the person who I have interest in charging, you release them. You release them right away. And this is something that we have made memos into the department that even though persons can be detained for up to 48 hours without charge, that doesn't mean that you will expel or utilize the entirety of the 48 hours. The lawfulness of detention is assessed on an hour-by-hour basis or minute-by-minute basis. The time that it has become very apparent to that police officer that he or she will not be able to charge that person, you release them. And having released them, please not recycle them, right? That is something that we have made clear.
There have been cases where they release and grab it back and do the same 48 again.
And indeed, we are not shying away from that as a department. It has been done. As with everything in society, people seek to find loopholes, you know. So that is something that we have made into memo and directed into the department that once 48 hours has elapsed or even before you release that person, why 1 hour later, 5 minutes later, you will detain that person? Certainly, or unless you can justify that. Just after 5 minutes, I received this very significant and important and, you know, the linchpin of information to justify picking up that person right after that. When a person is charged and taken before the court, that process is called arraignment. And at arraignment, the person will be read their charges in a language that they understand and just the basics of it and ask what they plead if it is that there's somebody who is fit to plead. And subsequent to that, the issue of bail is something that is addressed. Speaking of bail, I know one of the most recent incidents that gained a lot of traction in the department, in the media, is the incident that happened on the south side of Belize with the young man, Mr. Lam, who had been convicted prior for sexual offenses. You know, the police officer in that instance and even in previous times would have been saying, you know what, because at the lower court, Belize has a very unique thing in that police officers are prosecutors. In other part of the world, it's not police officers, right? And Sergeant Smith, who would have dealt with him on the previous occasion and would have made submissions for the penalty to have been greater. And this is another misconception. People believe it's police that implements whatever sentencing. The police, they're stupid, they only get a man 11 months, a kind of thing that police have absolutely nothing to do with that. We conduct the prosecution and we make our submissions, and it is within the remit of the court to decide what they deem is just under the circumstances. But
there's this conversation, Dawn, we'll wrap up shortly. There's this conversation where the legal fraternity insists that bail is a right. It's not a privilege, right? Depending on the type of crime that is committed. Now I could understand if you commit murder, you have to look for a bail different than if you commit an offense that is bailable. It becomes your right to be able to come out on bond.
Yes, and certainly they are not wrong in holding that position. Certainly restricting someone's liberty should only be pursuant to a conviction or where there is very compelling reasons to do so. Now, in a case where someone has not been convicted, have just been arraigned, if it is that what time has proven is that every time this person is out on bail, the person has the propensity to commit again and crimes of the like manner. So though bail is a right, the state and the court knows that it has a duty to protect that person in terms of maybe they may be the subject of retaliatory violence because of what they've done, and the public if it is that these are persons who continue to re-offend. You know, because ultimately what the court considers is the likelihood of that person turning up for trial. But there are other considerations that are borne in mind, and it is for the prosecutors and the defense attorneys to put that to the court and for the court to make their decision.
Well, ASP Stacy Smith, thank you so much for joining us this morning. And of course, there will be a lot more conversations about this in the press briefing this afternoon with the Commissioner of Police, Dr. Rosado. But thank you so much for your time and for being here with us.
And thank you so very much for having me.
All right, we are going to take another short break, and we'll be switching gears kind of around the same conversation. We'll be having representatives from UNICEF, and we'll be asking them, why is there a different approach to justice when it comes to juveniles? You don't want to miss that conversation. We'll be right back.
Prepare for the heat and stay cool with a Reamer Gree air conditioning unit from Benny's. Choose the right BTU unit size for your bedroom or living room and enjoy complete comfort. You can also save money with an inverter unit that is energy efficient. When the heat is on, stay cool and comfortable with an affordable, dependable AC unit from Ream or Gree. Available at Benny's. Quality and savings.
In our world that's always changing, one thing stays the same.
Our promise as Smart Belize to keep you connected.
Connected to the moments, the people, and the future that matter most.
With every new tower, our service upgrades, and every new smile, we're keeping our promise in building more than a network.
We're building a future, a family as Smart Belize. From Punta Gorda to Caraza, we are here not just as a network, but as your partner in progress.
We have grown significantly over the past 20 years, and we just keep growing. Thank you for placing your trust in us. We remain dedicated to providing meaningful connections that bring value in every way that matters to you. We continue to bring people together.
It's finally here. KTV The Remix Season 7 goes live. Come meet the new cast of challengers ready to shake up the stage and remix the culture. From raw local power to lyrical fire, from classical hits to bold new sounds. This is where Belize's next star is born. The place to be? The Bliss Center for the Performing Arts. Get your tickets today for only $5 at Greater Belize Media on Coney Drive and 88 Shopping Center. KTV The Remix Season 7, Tuesday, July 8th at 8 p.m. See you there.
And welcome back. Our second conversation this morning, we're joined by representatives of UNICEF, and we're going to be discussing the juvenile justice and its ambit within the law. In studio this morning with us is the Acting Director of Community Rehabilitation Department, Ganesha Smith. Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning.
And she's joined by Michelle Segura Magan, the Child Protection Officer with UNICEF. Ladies, good morning.
Good morning.
And thank you for being here.
It sounds like a heavy topic.
It is.
Juvenile justice within the law. Where do we begin from in terms of being able to contextualize this and the work that UNICEF is doing to perhaps promote the awareness of juvenile justice and law?
Right. So maybe we could start by just defining what child justice is. Child justice is, in very simple terms, putting the best interest of the child at the heart of at the beginning, at the middle, and end of any criminal proceeding or judicial proceeding, because children come in contact and in conflict with the law, so they can be victims, witnesses, and they also could commit crimes. So it's just upholding their rights, their best interests, and making sure that it is fair and their rights are upheld.
How does and I think it's almost like a contradiction to think about a child committing crimes. right? Or being in a particular state where they have to be witness to a crime because they're so innocent.
Right.
How do you even begin to approach a child that has had to deal with this type of situation? What sort of conversation or, I don't know, mental health practices go into having this type of conversation?
The approach has to be holistically. For one, we're looking at children who, like Michelle said, may have came in conflict with the law or does have a particular case right now, and it's to look at it from a perspective where they may have experienced trauma, their previous exposure, their current environment, and it is to see where they are first. Where exactly is that child psychologically? Where is that child physically? Where is that child emotionally? And then we make a decision in terms of, or at the department, we advocate or make recommendations in the best interest in terms of the direction we would want to support that particular child.
How does UNICEF then work within the laws of Belize? How do you all collaborate with the Belize Police Department or the justice system?
We co-facilitate a Child Justice Steering Committee, which is a multi-agency committee made up of police, the judiciary, human development, police, and we look at interventions from a structural level that need to be made to protect the rights of children, whether they come in contact or in conflict with the law. So it's looking at, do they have psychosocial services? Do they have that mental health support when they come in contact with the judiciary or with the police? Are they supported throughout the judicial process? And then when they come in conflict with the law, are their rights upheld? Because according to the evidence or statistics in Belize, the children that commit offenses are not serious offenses, right? They are what we consider petty offenses, petty crimes, and so many of them are first-time offenders. And that is where we support diversion, the diversion program. And when we define diversion, it is providing alternative measures for children who commit offenses that are not serious, so that and it has a few principles that we want to take into account. So non-custodial measures, right? And the reform, the rehabilitative process, because children, they are still learning, they're still developing. I mean, their prefrontal cortex is still, it's still developing, right? So they are, we have to take into account their evolving capacities, and that they are able to learn to turn a leaf easier than adults. Not to say that adults are not able to be reformed or rehabilitated, but it's easier for children, and that is what the evidence is showing. Up to 70% of children who go through a diversion program are not repeat offenders. So the earlier that you implement this preventative measure, the more successful it is. That is what the evidence is showing. And it's no different here in Belize.
Yeah. What is of interest to me, and perhaps it has always piqued my curiosity, is the strict confidence and the sensitivity of the matters that deal with children, particularly when they're either victims of something gone wrong, or even when they are perpetrators of something gone wrong. They're dealt with in such a way where their rights have to be upheld at all costs, right? And why I say it's of interest to me is because in the media, we have had a learning curve where you can't just put the person's image or information out there the way we would an adult, right? Because in our case with adults, once you've been through the system and you've processed, we could go ahead and publish and say this person committed or is alleged to have committed this particular offense. In the case of a child, that still has to be kept under wraps, right? And oftentimes our public asks us, well, why never publish the person's name? Because, well, that he get charged regardless of whatever the case may be. And it's a matter of us being able to educate them in as much as we were educated to move away from what would have been questionable practices with publishing certain information. Let's get you on that, Ganesha.
A child is a child is a child. And so we respect that from 0 to 18. At the Community Rehabilitation Department, we do just that. We work with juvenile offenders, first-time offenders in rehabilitation. And so this diversion program is one of our important programs under case and court management. It has two pathways. We work with the police as well as the court. And so a child can be diverted at the police, again for the offenses of a petty crime. An assessment is being done with that particular child. That child has to give account of their action and is willing to participate in the intervention program. And that can be done at the police station. A referral can be made, and the department then develops a 4-month plan with that particular child. At the court, it's a decision for the court to make in terms of the offenses and if the case warrants diversion. It is important. These are our future children, and while I know the general public might say, well, they commit a crime, so punish them, it is not to address an issue from a punitive standpoint, but more of a rehabilitative standpoint, to correct the wrong and have them still continue making good decisions or make better decisions. And so it's important to protect their names. It's important to protect their identity. Unfortunately, we have a culture that is very cruel at times. And so it's hard for a child to bounce back or to develop resiliency when you constantly have the pounding at them for things that they have done. And so that's the standpoint we take, more rehabilitative, more strengths-based approach, looking at who that child is, what that child can do. And yes, we acknowledge the weaknesses, but then we start working with them in strengthening that part of it.
I have a question, and kind of came at the heels of what Michelle was talking about earlier. Sometimes these kids are the results of the environments that they're in, but most of the time, right? So with all of the rehabilitation and ensuring that they are okay, they still have to go back to that same environment. So what sort of skill sets are you all assisting them with to ensure that they rise above that environment and they are no longer a statistic?
In terms of looking at the approach, we don't only work with the particular child, because going back to the environment is not one of the best if it is that you haven't worked with the family. So we do work with families. We do offer counseling. We do offer job readiness programs and life skills development. We prepare them for that. Again, like I said, in terms of making better decisions. And we do offer some of these services to parents from a different end, or Ministry of Human Development has 3 departments. And so we work with families from different ends. You have the child protection who works with the victims. We work with the juveniles and offenders. And then we have the family support department who looks at the family as a whole. So we do make internal referrals to meet families where they are.
And that is one of the benefits of diversion, and in that it treats the structural drivers and the root causes, because it is a symptom, right? So a child will not steal or sell weed or drugs because everything is, okay at home. They have food at home, protection at home. And so diversion really looks at these structural drivers like poverty, access to education, violence,
social support.
and then social support. And they make an assessment based on all these factors and implement interventions, like Ganesha said, at the community level, the home, and it's a prevention measure. But it's also very practical because we have an overburdened justice system.
Indeed.
And so
Right.
if a child commits a minor offense and could be reformed and rehabilitated, why should we put them through criminal justice proceedings, right?
Very true.
So it saves us time, it saves us money, and it looks at reforming, a child.
Is there any metric or measure to gauge the success of putting kids through the diversion program as opposed to putting them through the legal system per se, or the criminal justice system?
There is. We do have check-ins, like 4-month check-ins, to make sure that a person has passed through the diversion intervention program, that what their success stories are, and then we would compare it to a case maybe that have filed and not that was not diverted. Based on our follow-ups or check-ins with the court, we would also go back and advocate, because some of these children are placed in a detention home where the department still have access. So we still have access to persons from the Wagner's facility or the New Beginning that comes under the Community Rehabilitation Department. And that does not take away from us working and developing a plan for them. So we would compare what is working, what's not working, and try to bridge that gap in terms of meeting their needs. A specific matrix, I think it's still a work in progress in terms of identifying what that looks like, but we're working on that.
Yeah, but regionally and globally, the evidence shows that the earlier you intervene, the higher the success rates are. Right. And we do have a number of success cases at CRD, and some who have even participated in the apprenticeship program, where the department has had partnerships with the private sector, which have been extremely successful, where these young persons turn their lives around, they learn a skill or get educated, and then they find work, employment, and they keep the employment and lead successful lives. And what we are partnering with the department to do is to recognize these young persons and their accomplishments.
I would imagine it's a difficult task with limited resources, both human and financial, to cover most of these different incidents, not only in the urban settings but also in the rural communities as well. How are you all able to keep the course?
There's a lot of commitment from the community at large. There's a lot of support coming from the community. Once people recognize the work of the department, most persons would assist. We have had persons coming in asking to be volunteers for summer programs, wanting to support, or businesses wanting to donate. And so that is what keeps us going. Just to go back in terms of the apprenticeship program that Michelle spoke about, last year we saw an 85% of persons who completed the program, and employers kept them on. So they're still employed. We have just recently did a check-in, and about 80% of them are still working. We do have that apprenticeship program coming up again in August of this year, and we do have applications where persons can get at the department. It closes on July 30th and it rolls out on the 18th of August. And so it's open again for persons to participate, youth at risk to participate, and we provide them with the services they need.
All right. Do you all have any final words as we wrap up our conversation this morning?
I think for UNICEF, it is extremely important to have these partnerships, not only with government, but with also private sector, NGOs, CSOs, because it's not an issue that will be resolved overnight, and it's not an issue that is only a UNICEF issue or a human development or social issue. We all have a role to play, and I think that is our call to action.
Well, ladies, thank you so much for joining us this morning. And we are going to be switching gears into some eco-tourism. We have our friends here from the Ministry of Tourism to talk about funding sustainable eco-tourism with grant support. So you don't want to miss that conversation. We'll be right back.
Unwrap the joy of crystal clear picture and sound from Iowa, the brand that offers you affordability and exceptional quality. Iowa has a wide range of exceptional products to choose from, such as TVs, speakers, headphones, home appliances, and much more at affordable prices that won't break the bank. Enhance your audio-visual entertainment experience with Iowa, and for your convenience, parts are readily available in country for hassle-free maintenance. You can find Iowa products at your local electronics store countrywide. Choose Iowa, the best in home entertainment and household appliances.
My name is Carlton Flowers, and I'm the owner of Back to My Roots Art from the Heart. And in this store, I produce a lot of handmade ornaments. Before I had access, it was a big problem because the tourist doesn't carry as much cash. We needed to have the machine to make the business a success. Dealing with the machine, I don't have to take time out from the store to go and, or send people to go to the bank. I would recommend Belize Bank Digital Service because it has done a lot for me personally. It has done a lot for my business. It helps me with paying my bills online, and I really appreciate that the staff took time out and teach me what I needed to get done. So I'm very happy that now I can do it confidently on my own.
It's finally here. KTV The Remix Season 7 goes live. Come meet the new cast of challengers ready to shake up the stage and remix the culture. From raw local power to lyrical fire, from classical hits to bold new sounds, this is where Belize's next star is born. The place to be? The Bliss Center for the Performing Arts. Get your tickets today for only $5 at Greater Belize Media on Coney Drive and 88 Shopping Center. KTV The Remix Season 7, Tuesday, July 8th at 8 p.m. See you there.
Welcome back to Open Your Eyes. We just switching gears into culture more so than ecotourism, but we are talking about preserving and safeguarding the future of culture in Belize, and through a different lens, more about the culture and creative sector. And joining us in studio, we have Kim Vasquez, who is the director of the Institute of Creative Arts. Good morning. And joining us is Dr. Deborah Hickling-Gordon, and she is the UNESCO consultant and cultural policy specialist here with us in Belize. Good morning, ladies.
Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Before we get into the nitty-gritty of preserving culture and why it's important that we all play a role in it, this particular conversation is more geared towards the orange economy and the culture and creative sector, copywriting, intellectual property. But that is under the heels of the 2005 UNESCO Convention, which we don't really hear that much about in Belize. We talk a lot about, you know, living heritage, archaeology, and the sites that we can see and the music and so forth. But let's get into the 2005 convention.
All right. Well, both are linked. So it's important to understand that culture, wherever we are, is who we are and what we do and why we do it and how we do it, how we sing it, how we say it, etc. But then the expressions of that culture is what we use now to create value. So that's where we get the issues of economy, and that's where we get the orange economy. So you can't separate culture from the creative industries, and that's what we're here to do, extend the conversation from the issues of preservation, which are absolutely critical and important, to the issues of deriving greater value for the economy of Belize through all its various facets, through its heritage, through its music sector, through its phenomenal craft. I've seen some things that have blown me away on this visit. Through its people, its language, its food, and so on. How is it that Belize can derive value from this going forward, and sustainably? Because one of the things that I've learned since I've been here is that sustainability is big on the priority listing of the Belizean people.
I find it interesting that you say it that way, because when we think about tourism in Belize and the way that we have generated revenue apart from, you know, the eco and the archaeological sites, it has been through the creative section.
That's right.
Where, you know, you have a lot of groups that come in, they sell their art in the tourist village, they sell their art in their communities and so forth to be able to sustain themselves. So how is it that we're not doing it in a manner that is I don't want to use the word sustainable again, but right, how are we not doing this?
In the Caribbean, the relationship between culture and tourism well, they're intrinsically linked, right? Absolutely. Whether it's the eco side, in terms of the culture of our ecosystems and so on, or it is the performance and performative and creative side. Well, I don't think you're not doing it. I absolutely think, you see, Belize has been very progressive when it comes to the issue of culture. Belize was the first country to actually create what I call a modern cultural policy in the 21st century. Yours was started in about 2017, finished in about 2019, but it was the first one to come out after the CARICOM talks of 2015. So, I mean, Belize needs to applaud themselves on that, because many other Caribbean countries have followed on, but followed on slowly, right? So I don't think Belize has any beating up to do on themselves. I think there is now an opportunity for us to update that policy, which is why I'm here to work with the people of Belize to kind of just provide some technical assistance to get that done. This is not about me at all. It is the policy of Belize. I want to make that very, very clear. Whatever comes out is coming out through a national team. We set up a national team in 2023 through ECA. Which means that we're bringing people together in terms of participatory governance to participate in the decision making going forward, which is a part of the UNESCO methodology. That's how they do things in UNESCO. So all the artists, we're bringing together the government officials. We have a meeting with the government officials tomorrow to kind of look at all of the different areas that in technical language we say are fragmented, but we're trying to pull the pieces together so that we have a cohesive approach to cultural policy. So it's an exciting time for transformation.
So I have a question.
Yes.
Cultural preservation is such a broad topic.
Yes.
Particularly when you look at the quote-unquote melting pot that Belize is, where you have so many different ethnicities and each ethnic group has its own culture and its traditions and so forth. And admittedly, some may very well be given more spotlight than others.
Right.
When you look at the cultural composition of this country, you have certain groups that are at the forefront and others that are working diligently in the back, but they don't get as much, shine, so to speak, as others. In the context of being able to move Belize forward, but still retain some of its rich cultural heritage and what have you, either through the orange economy or any other facet or avenue, how do we find the balance between what we're exporting culturally to the rest of the world versus the things that are inherent and intrinsic to Belize?
Okay. So there are two questions in there that I'm hearing, right? The first is the issue of finding that balance of inclusion for all of the groups. So that's why we're here, to find those mechanisms, to create those mechanisms to make sure that that it's an inclusive approach that is being taken through the structures of government of Belize. So that's the first part. The other issue of balance is another important focal point of cultural policy. What is it, how we place emphasis on those things that we're producing for export and those things that we are creating for the domestic market? And here's how I see it. If you create it for the domestic market at the highest possible level, at the highest possible standard, then and it is available to our guests, then everybody is satisfied. And I think that's what we need to do. Ensure that whatever it is that is being created, music, craft, art, fashion, it's available to everyone at a standard that is international. And then, but then it is making it available to the market. That's the next step. These are some of the things that we're looking at, how to be able to create the markets through Bell Trade in association with ICA. How BTB will work in this kind of group of technical experts to ensure that all of these avenues are explored. It's about creating that strategy to ensure that we have a cohesive approach to ensuring that Belize's culture is celebrated locally and internationally.
I want to bring Kim into the conversation because you are director of ICA, but you've been working with cultural and creatives for most of your life, and you have been in this field not just as a creative yourself, but ensuring that the artists, they not only get recognition, but they're properly compensated for the work that they do. How are you and these artists able to kind of work hand in hand for them to understand their intellectual property is safe, their copyright is safe, that they're getting their bank for their art and all of that?
So as Deborah has been in country a few days now, and we are moving around ahead of the public launch that we're going to have this week, and engaging, we're reminded of the need to continuously do two things, or to be aware of two things at ICA. One, that the landscape is always evolving, and we need to always be in dialogue with the cultural and creative stakeholders. Isani said, you get the perception sometimes that one group is ahead. But when you speak to them, especially within the different districts, the reality of what they're saying is different from how we perceive it. We met with members of the executive of the National Creole Council, and we heard their concerns that, again, maybe they are being left behind, and they look and the tendency to compare is natural. But then we were down in Dangriga, and we heard from a group comprised mainly of Garifuna that they are concerned, scared actually, for their language, for their traditions, and asking, yes, we're sitting here in the culture capital, but how do we really want that to look in actuality? And that is at the heart of what we're trying to do with the strategy, is to ensure that we capture and we have the participation of a national team. And who is the national team? All the artists and the culture practitioners. Everyone can be a part of the national team because this is going to be their plan. This is your plan. And so we want you to be involved in the process. We want your voices, your stories, your ideas, and we want to hear the good and the bad. Right? Because sometimes, you know, the tendency is to only focus on the challenges and we don't highlight the good. And then sometimes too, there are the need to polish things. We don't want to polish that. We want to hear what are the challenges, what are the constraints, but in a way that everybody can participate, even the elders, the young creatives that are doing fantastic things with creative entrepreneurship, and make sure that we have this balance, that the elders and the young are at the table and participating with the technical team. The technical team will guide the process, but it's really about having the cultural and creative stakeholders involved.
I think that that balance there is very necessary. While this 2005 convention is to basically safeguard the artists and the art,
their expression.
Is the expression.
The creative expression.
It brings back to that conversation you and Sabrina were having about separating the art from the artist, right? And in this manner, you have two conventions that do that. Because you have the 2003 convention that safeguards your intangible culture, the things that you can't see, that music and so forth. But then you have the 2005 that safeguards the artist and the expression that they're doing.
Right, exactly.
And how do you balance that out? How do you walk on that tightrope? Because it seems to be kind of tricky.
Well, especially now as we move into the 21st century, we see that issue of identity versus economy. But as I said in the beginning, if you bring the two together and then you find the right balance, there are 5 transformational areas, right? And one of them is ideology, and the ideology of a nation will tell you where they want to set their balance. And every country is different. There are some who are going to be placing their full emphasis on the economic side. There are others who are going to be placing their full emphasis on the preservation and culture side. And there are others where you have to kind of tease out the balance and determine and create the mechanisms that will represent what that country requires specifically.
So you have a meeting that you're bringing stakeholders together. What will that meeting look like? And then you have a launch for something else.
Well, we have a project that is underway. It is a national strategy and roadmap for the cultural and creative sector for Belize. And on Thursday at the Museum of Belizean Art at 10 a.m., we are going to have the public and stakeholder launch of that project. That is where we will also form the national team. If you can't make it, if you're a cultural practitioner, you're an artist, dancer, musician, designer,
media worker,
yes, podcasts, vloggers, all of that, filmmakers. If you can't make it there, more engagement will happen in the next coming weeks. We already started, actually. We had a head start in the past week, and more engagement will happen, and you can come on board and be a part of the national team. But we want to present it to the public. We want to present it to our partners as well. And we want to be able to present an overview and get everybody to understand the project and the process and what it is we're trying to achieve. Even a little bit of capacity building, because almost every artist, if you talk to some cultural organization, everybody have a program that they're trying to tap into the creative economy. Our partners, Beltrade, BTB, the various ministries, so many of them have done work to advance the orange economy. And what we want to do is to unite and to kind of compile everything so that we can have a nice cohesive strategy, connect all the dots and bring everybody together, both the artists and the government partners.
Well, ladies, thank you so much for joining us this morning. I hope and I trust that it will be a very fruitful and successful mission.
I hope to see you on Thursday.
I hope to see you on Thursday too, but yes, I will be there. But thank you all so much and best of luck.
Thank you.
All right, moving on, we have our friends from the Belize Tourism Ministry, and they're going to be in to talk about funding sustainable ecotourism with grant support.
I'm Langsert and I'm a teacher and I bank with Belize Bank Independence Branch. What I enjoy is the safety features that the app offers. I have a sense of not having to worry or be concerned about somebody finding my password and username to sign in the application because of the use of the one-time password. And another feature that I love, that I use the most, is how the app synchronizes with my fingerprint on my device. I enjoy the rapid and easy, seamless process to apply for loans through the Belize Bank, and I don't have to be having too much back and forth to visit or take time to visit the bank. They also start to offer the online applications through the app for loan applications, which I believe is very neat. I would definitely recommend Belize Bank to other teachers because one of all the features and advantages that the app offer with these online that Belize Bank offered is basically everything that you can do in the palm of your hand. So I would definitely recommend the bank to other teachers.
Finally here, KTV The Remix Season 7 goes live. Come meet the new cast of challengers ready to shake up the stage and remix the culture. From raw local power to lyrical fire, from classical hits to bold new sounds. This is where Belize's next star is born. The place to be? The Bliss Center for the Performing Arts. Get your tickets today for only $5 at Greater Belize Media on Coney Drive and 88 Shopping Center. KTV The Remix Season 7, Tuesday, July 8th at 8 p.m. See you there.
In our world that's always changing, one thing stays the same.
Our promise as Smart Belize to keep you connected.
Connected to the moments, the people, and the future that matter most.
With every new tower, our service upgrades, and every new smile, we're keeping our promise in building more than a network.
We're building a future, a family as Smart Belize. From Punta Gorda to Caraza, we are here not just as a network, but as your partner in progress.
We have grown significantly over the past 20 years, and we just keep growing. Thank you for placing your trust in us. We remain dedicated to providing meaningful connections that bring value in every way that matters to you. We continue to bring people together.
Welcome back to Open Your Eyes. We are engaging in a conversation that's all about the Sustainable and Inclusive Belize Grant. And we have with us Mr. Denmar VR, and he is the project coordinator of SAIB, if you will. And we have Simone Bell, who is the investment specialist over at the Belize Tourism Board. Good morning. Good morning.
Good morning, April. Good morning, Fanny.
Well, you have some exciting news to share with us and the Belizean public, and it's all about how they can be a part of this sustainable and inclusive Belize project. Let's get your words on it.
Yes, good morning. Good morning, viewers. We are here to speak about the Sustainable and Inclusive Belize program, better known as SAIB. The Sustainable and Inclusive Belize program is an initiative by the government of Belize that is funded through the Inter-American Development Bank, the IDB. It is being executed through the Ministry of Finance by the Central Executing Unit, and it is being implemented by the Ministry of Tourism's Youth, Sports and Diaspora Relationship through the Belize Tourism Board.
What is the program about, and how can persons get involved?
Okay, the Sustainable and Inclusive Belize program is a matching grants program whereby the grantees will need to come up with a percentage as a matching grant. The main objective of the program is to improve incomes and promote sustainable livelihoods. Within that general objective, we have 3 specific objectives, which is 1, to improve the competitiveness of the micro, small, and medium enterprises, to improve the environmental sustainability, and to improve the climate resiliency of such stakeholders in the tourism industry.
I'm curious to understand what you mean by competitiveness of MSMEs, because I feel like they are a huge part of our economic growth in Belize.
Correct. MSMEs play a key and important role in Belize, and in this case, since we're talking tourism, they play a key role. But we do believe that there is room to take their services and their products up one notch, and that's why we mean by improve their competitiveness.
Okay.
We want standards, we want service, we want to take it up a notch. For example, there are maybe businesses that simply don't have polo shirts for their employees.
Yeah.
They might have outdated facilities. Reservation systems are being done through laptops that are 10 years old for different reasons. So this program gives an opportunity of getting free money, basically to improve the facade. News 5 here did a nice rebranding and refacade. Most businesses, a touch-up, improving their infrastructure, how the facilities look, says a lot. Nobody wants to go into a rundown business. We see a restaurant and we see rundown, we don't want to go eat there because we think the food is not good. So this is where we say improve the competitiveness. Competitiveness also goes, we will want to improve their financial literacy because that is key to their sustainability. Most small businesses are not sure if they are making money. They are sure that they are turning over money. But at the end of the day, when all the bills are paid, when all the suppliers are paid,
what are you left with?
Sometimes they're left with red, hoping that, oh, next week Friday we're getting another tour and more money coming in. So I always tell small businesses, are you making money or are you turning over money for somebody else? Then the question of financial literacy kicks in, because then we will, this program is not only to assist with money, this program is going to assist them with technical assistance. Ms. Simone's going to speak about that part of it, but that is how we believe this program will assist the small businesses to go up a notch.
Let's get in on it, Simone.
All right, well, particularly for this program, we're looking at a cross-section of the tourism enterprise, and it's good timing that we followed the heels of Ms. Vasquez, because cultural enterprises can also have access to the grant under this program. We have designed, as the implementing entity, a technical capacity outreach for all of the participants who are selected for the program. So there is an application process and then a selection process. The technical component comprises a team of consultants. We have business experts that are in the field that will also be assigned to each participant. And we have also gone as far as to involve student advisors. So we use final year, and some of them are graduates from the University of Belize, who will be additional support to help people move further along in the program. So I believe it's an all-encompassing design. What we hope to achieve is that each business that participates will be able to generate what we call a sustainable tourism business plan. And this is because a lot of us as entrepreneurs have ideas but don't have streamlined focus. And we, having implemented several other projects, realized that the money without the technical capacity kind of gets lost in the system. So our core focus for the Sustainable and Inclusive Belize program is to develop the business plan and to ensure that they have the financial support. So we will be helping small businesses to generate their cash flow statements, their income statements, their balance sheets, so that they can have that idea of what Denmar was speaking about, whether they're turning around money or they're actually making a profit, because that is an interesting aspect of being a business owner. I mean, you could see money come, but when it's time to invest in the business and grow the business, you just can't find it. And it's because of these small, I wouldn't say missteps, but failing to pay attention to the details and having that guided focus that allows them to fall behind. And in elevating the standard of the tourism product, we consider all businesses to play a role, because I mean, tourism is so all-encompassing. You know, we have the artisans, we have the food vendors, we have the restaurants, we have the tour operators, we have spas, we have transport providers. So all of these people are actually eligible to apply. And our application is an online application. It's found at www.saib.bz/tourism-grants. But if you don't remember all of that, just remember www.saib.bz. We've gone digital with the application process, but if you're not avid or savvy, you can reach out to us at 67 Grant. We have people that can assist in filling out of the application form, and we find it useful because right now we are getting a very good number of applicants. We're in excess of over 100. The program has launched, I would say, about 2 weeks now. We have 2 more weeks left for the application period. The application form itself is not very complex, right? You have basic questions, and then we just ask for your passport or social security. And it's not only for formalized businesses. So if you're in the informal sector and you don't have your paperwork, part of the program allows you to formalize the business within 6 months of being approved. So we will also work with you to have your business formalized. So I think it's an excellent opportunity for small businesses. I would encourage them to apply.
So how does this initiative serve to ensure the viability and the longevity of these respective MSMEs?
Like I stated earlier, and like how Mr. Moon says, we will help especially the micro who are not fully formalized. We have been having educational stakeholders outreach countrywide, and most common things that micro businesses don't have is, for example, they have a business name. It's not registered. Some of them have a business logo, trademark, it's not registered. Some of them have expenses and incomes written in an exercise book, but it's not in a proper income statement. So this is where we plan to work with them, have their business names registered, have their logos registered, ensure their participation with our consultants for them to know their business through a different lens. They will be doing their SWOT analysis, their strength of their businesses, their financials, and at the end, they will have a fully sustainable and professionally made business plan, which then the business owner will get to know their business from a different angle and say, wow, this is what business is about. So we do expect, and one of the outcomes is to increase the sustainability. We do expect that these businesses continue in tourism for the long haul, because as we know, some businesses get into tourism a couple of years and COVID comes or something comes and they can't bridge that gap.
And to support what Denmar is saying, there is a monitor and an evaluation component of the program. So the consultants that will be working with the individual businesses will be monitoring the implementation of the projects that they're getting the grants for. So that will at least help to ensure that what the money is supposed to be used for is used for the purpose. And we also, through the planning process, have our experts working with them to develop the ideas for the business. So we're hoping that this will be an excellent project, because the technical capacity that's behind it, in addition to the resources back from the government of Belize, should create, because I mean it should. We're implementing the project now, and that's the reason why we're embarking on several educational sessions. The commitment is always in the individual business owner. So if I want to do well for my business, then I will make that extra effort. If I don't really want to do well, then it could be lost on that business. So it's important for them to realize that this is an opportunity that doesn't come around every day. The funds you can get from $14,000 Belize up to $30,000 Belize can actually make a real difference in a small business's capacity. And that this is not money that they're borrowing, this is a grant. So if you utilize it to the best of your ability, you can really transform the product offering of Belize. And this is what we're here to advertise. This is an opportunity for small businesses to participate in the transformation of Belize's tourism product.
Beautiful. Well, I am appealing to our viewers that are watching right now. If they are interested in, being a part of this program, just head on over to www.saib.bz, and then you'll find the application and so forth on there. Or if you are not so tech savvy, you can call 67 Grant. Okay, GRANT. Yes. All right. Well, Denmar and Simone, thank you so much for joining us this morning. I think it's a wonderful initiative, and I do hope that you get more persons
and
involved.
501 project can apply as well.
And 501.
One thing that I need to mention before we leave is that the deadline for applications is July 18th. So there is still time for businesses who are just getting to know about this. They still have time to apply. Now, the business plan doesn't have to be ready by July 18th. They need to apply.
Okay.
Whenever they are selected, then the process of producing and working on the business plan will begin.
Can cooperatives and NGOs be a part of this as well?
Yes.
All right. Wonderful. Thank you so much.
Thank you, guys.
All right, and we want to say a big thank you to all of our other guests that stopped in and had the conversation with us. And of course, a big thank you to you, our viewers. It is July 7th. And if it is your birthday today, a happy birthday to you from all of us here at OYE and Greater Belize Media. And if you have a birthday shout out or just a question or a comment, you can drop us a line right here at OYE@channel5belize.com. You can also catch our live stream on Facebook at Open Your Eyes BZ, and check out our highlights on Instagram at OYE Belize. You can also text us on our OYE number, that's 675-2555. And of course, do us a favor and join us again tomorrow on Tuesday when you open your eyes.
To start your morning right.
Be sure to keep your eyes,
your mind, and your hearts open.
and your hearts open. And of course, tomorrow is the start of our KTV The Remix Season 7. You don't want to miss that first live show. It's going to be a good one. So thank you so much for joining us. Please have a wonderful rest of your day. Bye.
Open Your Eyes was brought to you by the Belize Bank, our country, your bank, and SMART, bringing people together.